And you may be seated, and thank all of you for being here this morning. At a time when we're constantly barraged with warnings on our newscast, every evening and every morning, there comes a good word from Almighty God. Be of good cheer. You know, over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to face what 7 million other people in our great country have faced. But through the love of God, I stand before you today. When I was a young man, about 18 years of age, I was coming back from college one day, crossing the intersection in a little hometown of Hallsville, Texas, and a Grondack truck, driver drunk, broadsided us, and I lived through it. From that period of time, I have been rear-ended by an 18-wheeler, totaled our car, been in a head-on collision, survived. Audrey and I were driving down Crockett Road one day, and there was a car that hit us from behind, totaled our car, rear-ended it. I've told people that we survived all of those, but we can't get anyone to ride with us. But that's just the beginning, actually. Through the years, I've had 3 surgical heart procedures, battled prostate cancer, and now coronavirus. And I can tell you for sure, if coronas are as bad as coronavirus, I would never want to drink a Corona. But I'm thankful to be able to be here today and to share with you the gospel of Jesus Christ. My voice is a little weak, and I apologize for that. I've been having to holler at Audrey over the last several weeks. But no, she has done a masterful job. And so for your prayers, your thoughtfulness, your kindness, your calls, your texts, flowers, all the good food, and the wonderful niceties of life, I thank you. No preacher could ever feel more loved. And because of that, I can be of good cheer. You and I every day should rediscover the redeeming quality of struggle. We all have them. You've heard me say it many, many times in the book of Job, the 14th chapter, verse 1 and 2, that man who is born of woman is a few days and full of trouble. He blossoms for a moment, and then his life is taken away. But I'm so thankful that God allowed me to live because I'm not through with my journey yet. I'm not through with my mission. It just takes on a little bit different dimension. And God is blessing me through all of this. Because what I have experienced, I've had the opportunity to lift others. I'm so thankful for Dale. Dale and I have been calling each other every day and sharing symptoms and how you feel, Dale? Or he'd call me and ask, how you feeling today? Mike Whitley the same way. Allison Rader the same way. Others in our congregation, Kathy and Gary Chambliss, who suffered with coronavirus as well. But I know one thing, that through all of that, God is blessing us, and we have the opportunity to be renewed within our spirit, and that we can be of good cheer. You know, Christ said that on different occasions. One time he said in the book of John, the 16th chapter, in verse 33, he said to simply be of good cheer. And you know, when you're facing great difficulty in life, it's hard for us to feel that cheer. There are those moments of melancholy. There are those moments when we feel like, hey, we want to do anything but be of good cheer. But Christ taught us to do that. And because he taught us to do that, it is something that every one of us should be willing to implement in our life. He said, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world, you'll have tribulation. It's going to come. It's going to happen. God said it would. It comes as no surprise. I never really thought I would develop coronavirus or COVID-19, but who am I not to experience that as well as others in our world? But even in the midst of that, I felt God's hand was heavy upon me, not hurting me, but helping me to trust in him. Be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. The Apostle Paul in the book of Philippians chapter 4 said, rejoice in the Lord. And again, I say rejoice. And let me remind you that when Paul wrote these words, Paul was not sipping on a Slurpee down in Florida somewhere. But Paul had been under house arrest. Things were not going good for him because he was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. But he would say, rejoice, and let your moderation be known unto all men, for the Lord is at hand. And don't be troubled. The King James Version says, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer with supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. For Paul says, I know how to be abased. I know how to abound. He says, where and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. And I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. Despair is a part of life. It happens to every one of us. And it can happen to you. And if it does, know that we're praying for you, that God is going to bless you through all of it. One of the great stories in the Old Testament is the story of Moses in the book of Numbers, chapter 11. Moses saw problem after problem, burden after burden. And in actuality, Moses said, it's almost more than I can bear. It's almost more than I can really face in life. But God was with him, and God says, listen, Moses, don't take everything upon yourself at one time. It is a lesson that I have learned. It is a lesson that all of us should learn in life, because it can happen. I think of Joshua in the Old Testament. Joshua despaired and actually blamed God on one occasion for all that he had to go through in Joshua chapter 7. He understood something, though, eventually, and that was that God was going to be with him. One of the great prophets of the Old Testament was a prophet by the name of Elijah. He was overwhelmed. He thought he was the only one who was doing right. You know what? Sometimes in life we get that feeling, hey, nobody loves God like I love him. Nobody is serving the Lord like I'm serving him. But Elijah found out that with the hand of God, and God revealed himself unto this great prophet to let him know that God was with him. 1 Kings 19, verse 4 and verse 14. You and I should be of good cheer this morning. For our future is as bright as our faith. If I could leave you a lesson this morning, it would be to hold on to your faith. It's really the only thing that you really, really have. You know, in life sometimes we think we can control just about everything and anything. You know what? We don't have any control over anything. We don't. I've heard people say, well, you know what? We just have to leave that in God's control. I'm going to tell you something, folks. We leave it all in the control of the Almighty. Now, let me share with you just a few things this morning that I think are so significant about this lesson. And when I think of being of good cheer, I'm reminded that God gives good advice. You know, you can find advice. You can find it on social media. You can go to the internet. You can find it on the evening news, the morning news. But God says, be of good cheer. There was a time when he told the Apostle Paul that. And he said, rest assured that what I'm telling you is going to happen. So be of good cheer. God is with us at all times, not just during the good times of life. Sometimes we have a tendency to forget that. But it was a great lesson that Paul had to learn. And in the book of Proverbs, the 16th chapter, in verse 20, King Solomon said, he who heeds the word wisely will find good, and whoever trusts in the Lord will be happy. Now, does that mean, someone's asked me, can you still be on cloud nine after going through all of this? No, I'm not telling you that I'm on cloud nine this morning. Matter of fact, I'm probably on cloud 2 or 3. But I know one thing, that God is still God, and that God is still to be revered, and God is to be honored not only because of the good times, but even the difficult times in life that we face. And it boils down to our attitude in life. We should say, hey, we ought to relax. I don't know how many times I've had people tell me that over the last few weeks. Relax. Nothing is under your control. And listen, I never felt that more keenly than over the last few weeks. I didn't have any control. I didn't know what the future held. And when I was in the hospital for 2 days on oxygen, I didn't know whether I was going to make it, but my faith did not shake. I still trusted in God. And I realized that he is going to bless me. And this is something we all ought to remember, folks. Nothing under God's control is ever out of control. Think about it. Everything is under the control of God. And I'm going to tell you something. You can't find better advice than that. But what happens when advice goes bad? And I told you that sometimes you can find advice maybe on the internet or on your phone. You can Google it about a lot of things. But I'm going to tell you something. You cannot Google your faith. That comes, according to the Bible, in the book of Romans 10 and verse 17, through a study of the Word of God. Our God's advice is, blessed be the Lord who loads us daily with benefits. He is the God of our salvation. Psalms chapter 68 and verse 19. I get on social media every now and then, and I see a lot of advice. I hear a lot of advice, and I think, boy, that's just not good advice. I hear people say today, well, I don't need to wear my mask. I'm going to tell you something. I am a believer in wearing masks. And you know why I wear my mask? I'm not contagious anymore, and I thank God that I'm not. I wear my mask for you. I don't want someone else, even outside the church, to think, there goes Dan Manuel, he's not wearing a mask. I want them to know that that mask is worn for you, not for me. But let me encourage you to do it out of respect for other people. I know people say, well, I don't like them. I don't like it either. But you know what? You need to get rid of a mentality that says, I'm going to put myself before everybody else. If Christ taught us anything at all, and it's great advice, is to put everyone else first. Don't think that God just loaded you down with all those wonderful blessings last week, and He did. But think about the future. Think about what is God is going to continue to do for you. You know, one of my great passages in all the Bible is found in Proverbs 15:15. He who is of a merry heart has a continual feast. If I were to ask you this morning, where is your focus? On the bad that has happened to you or on the Lord? I can tell you that our focus ought to be on God, and start distancing yourself from people who lie to you and people who disrespect you, people who use you, and people who put you down. And you start focusing on things that are good. There's a second thing, and that is that God has good in store for your life. David said, no good thing will I withhold from him who walks uprightly. In Psalms 97, David says, light is sown for the righteous. Think about it. And gladness for the upright in heart. Rejoice in the Lord, he says, you righteous, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holy name. Give thanks because things are going well? No. You give thanks when things are going bad. Isn't that what King David did? Sure he did. He said, it's good that I've been afflicted, that I might learn your statutes. You know, there's nothing quite like a learning experience through illness. Notice the blessings are upon the righteous of God. And God teaches us that over and over. The Bible abounds with that one thought, that you and I can live guilt-free as long as we trust in our God and anchor ourselves to Him. Does that mean you'll never, ever have problems? You know, for some reason or another, people are easily disillusioned. And a lot of people think that because, you know, I'm a Christian, I won't have to face these things. I know a lot of Christians today that think, hey, you know, I'll never have to worry about coronavirus. I'll never have to worry about heart attacks. I'll never have to worry about cancer. Don't be disillusioned. Evil will befall you. And when I go back in the annals of history, I'm going to tell you something. One thing I have observed and one thing that I have learned is all of God's servants, without exception, suffered at the hand of demonic spirits. And death and disease, God's not the author of death and disease. He is the author of life. And God will love you to the end. And He will say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. What we have to do is let God know of our interest. And there is peace, according to verse 7 and verse 9 of Philippians chapter 4, because God is on your side no matter what. And because of it, you know what? Even in the face of adversity, I can keep smiling. I can smile to smile. Am I over this? No, I'm not over it. I'm not contagious. Don't be afraid. But it's going to take a while. Doctors have told me that. I understand it. But I'm smiling this morning, folks. It's a smile of faith and a smile of happiness that only my God could bring into my life. But number 3, happiness is worshiping God. I hope that you'll always remember that. Worship gives glory unto God, and it brings happiness to us. You know, sometimes people don't understand that. They don't. They don't understand why when they come to worship that's a thing of producing happiness and joy in our life, but it is so true. Sometimes the very thing that people seek becomes so elusive because we don't seek it wholeheartedly. David said, "Oh, come, let us sing unto the Lord that we have done this morning, and thank God we have. And let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation, and let us come before his presence with thanksgiving, and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all kings." There is delight in learning the word, David said. Your testimonies, notice what he says, also are my delight and my counselors. God is able to bring us faultless before our Father who is in heaven, and to keep us from stumbling, as he says here, and to present you faultless before the presence of the glory of God with exceeding joy. There's one thing I want you to remember this morning from this lesson, and it's this thought. Being a Christian does not mean you won't fall. It just means that Christ is there to catch us when we do. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. He is worthy of our worship. You know, God brings so many little serendipities. You know what a serendipity is? It's an unexpected blessing. So many times we have what we call expected blessings. We just know that God's going to do it. But a serendipity is an unexpected blessing. And how God brings those things into our life. That's why he is so worthy of worship. And he is the only one who is worthy. And he says, "But the hour cometh now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father and the Spirit in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him." God is worthy, and I'm so glad that all of you have chosen to be here this morning. I honestly am. I'm gratified by the presence of all of you, not for my sake, but because you're here to worship God and to honor him when so many people in our world are so afraid. The Apostle Paul, closing this morning, said something that's so worthy of all acceptation. In the book of Acts chapter 27, he reiterates it at the pen of Luke. And God says, "Wherefore, sirs," Paul speaking, "be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall happen even as it has been told unto me." God is such a wonderful God. He is. Many years ago, there was a man by the name of John Kinney. He showed up to repair a light fixture for a woman by the name of Gloria Scott. But one look at that dilapidated old house revealed that this near 80-year-old lady was in desperate need of a whole lot more help. And what happened in her life was just simply amazing. It was a moment of good cheer. You never know when God is going to call us for something greater, but it usually happens, serendipity, when we least expect it. When electrician John Kinney turned up at Gloria Scott's residence in Woburn, Massachusetts, he thought he was just there to take care of the sparks of one of the 80-year-old woman's light fixtures. But really, God had called John there for something much, much bigger. John may have been at Gloria's house to fix a light fixture, but it only took a quick look around to realize that this woman needed a lot more repairs than something electrical. There was extensive plumbing damage. There were holes in the ceiling and animals were getting in, but that wasn't it. Gloria didn't even have running water. Her kitchen sink was broken, and Gloria lived all alone without family and didn't have the money for all the necessary repairs. So she simply dealt with the malfunctioning sink as that 80-year-old woman lived without running water. John Kinney actually knew he couldn't fix the light fixture and leave Gloria Scott to live in these kinds of surroundings. It was definitely a hazard. It was a rough condition she was living in, he said, and I noticed it immediately. So John showed back up the following Monday, and he started tackling the much-needed repairs, by the way, for free. I knew she needed help, and I knew that she wasn't going to ask for it. Sometimes it takes just one person, just one, to do the right thing, and other people will follow suit. And by the way, that's just what happened after John Kennard started working on Gloria Scott's house. For John, in a moment of renewal, in a moment of serendipity, in a moment of be of good cheer, John recruited a few friends to help with the yard work, but there were so many repairs needed on this old home, the electrician realized that he would need even more help. So he looked for more help online, and with a simple description of the situation, he posted, "Nice old lady needs help." In just 24 hours, the page had already raised $3,500, and the donations have not stopped. The community's generosity allowed John to get professionals involved with the home repair project. But it also had loads of volunteers who came, who turned up to lend a helping hand. Why, businesses even started donating supplies. Restaurants started sending out meals. And God just kept meeting every need. The project kept growing and support kept coming in, Kenny said. Factually speaking, John started a Facebook page called Gloria's Gladiators to provide updates, and the Good Samaritan efforts just kept growing. Gloria's Gladiators have been able to install a new electrical system, plumbing system, roof, windows, insulation, back porch, paint job, and receiving a safe, comfortable place to live has certainly been a blessing to Gloria Scott. But the repairs are only a part of the blessing. For this elderly woman who spent so much time all alone came alive once again and could truthfully say, "Be of good cheer. Be of good cheer." If there's a message I would leave with you today, it would be that, to be of good cheer. We've been down too long. We don't need depression. And in the words of God's servant to Job, there is a lifting up for the people of God. Let us stand and let us sing.